we continue with this example for the genotypes that we came up with. So again, the genotypes are the genetic makeup of the individuals. So these are the genotypes still. So this is the genotype that is heterozygous for coat color. So what is the phenotype of this genotype? So remember, the big B is dominant over the little b. So based on that, which one is dominant? What is the phenotype of this genotype? So what would this look like? So this genotype will produce a black kitten, a black phenotype. Okay. And then these other genotypes here are both homozygous recessive, so they're both the same and they're recessive. So what color will this produce? White. This will produce white kittens, or white coat color. So the recessive allele will only be expressed if there is no dominant allele present, because here in the first genotype there is a little allele that would produce white, but because there's a dominant allele, it masks this smaller allele and it's black. So what is the probability of these parents, having a black kitten or offspring? Okay, so in order to show you probabilities, I'm going to show you another Punnett square here. So each of these squares represents 25%. So we're going to put it into a probability. You probably learned about probabilities in math before, or you know about percentages. And so if each of these is 25%, then the whole Punnett square equals 100%. So we look at these boxes here because these are the two that would create a black kitten, which is what we're looking for. So we want to know the probability of them having a black kitten. So we're looking at these two squares here. So what is the probability if we have 25% here and 25% here? So you have a 50% chance of having a black kitten because half of them, here, half of these kittens here would have a black coat color. So because you have a 50% chance of having a black coat color, you also have a 50% chance of having a white kitten with a white coat. Okay, so here's our Punnett score again. So some things to remember about probability. So the probability of an offspring, so it is the chances of having an offspring with a certain characteristic. Okay, it's an estimation. So it's an estimation of the kittens that these parents will have. And it works for other animals and for humans as well. Okay, so again we have a 50% chance, or 50% chance of having a black kitten. And then a 50% chance of having a white. An important thing to remember about probability is that it starts over with each new birth. So let's say these two parents had 4 kittens. It doesn't mean that they're going to have 2 that are going to be black and 2 that are going to be white. So each kitten that's born has a 50% chance of being a black kitten and then a 50% chance of being a white kitten. So it's an important thing to remember. Okay, so now we're going to practice again. So when you think of a pigeon, what do you think of? Imagine a pigeon in your head. Okay, so usually when I think of a pigeon, I think of this guy here. He's a gray pigeon. So they're the most common pigeons. But sometimes you also see this guy. This one is a brown pigeon. And it's more rare than these gray pigeons. So let's use pigeons for this example. So if a gray male pigeon mates with a brown female, so if this is a male and that's a female and they mate, the gray is dominant over the brown. So if the male is homozygous for the gray color, he would have big G and big G because he's homozygous and the gray is dominant. And the female is homozygous for the brown color. So she's also homozygous, but for brown. So she has 2 little g's. So again, the big G is for the gray allele, and then the little g is a brown allele. So what will their babies look like? Here's the baby pigeon. So what color is he going to be? So again, we have the mom and the dad. So let's do a Punnett square to find out. So first we put our dad here on the top line, these 2 big G's, and then we put the mom on this side. So now we're going to figure out what the babies look like. So we're going to fill in our Punnett square. So we have a big G and a little g, and another big G and a little g, and a big G and a little g here. So all of these are the same. Okay, so what are the possible phenotypes of the baby pigeon? So these are the genotypes of the baby pigeon here. So they're big G and little g, so one dominant and one recessive. So what are the phenotypes? Again, if the big G is dominant and the little g is recessive. For brown, so gray is dominant and recessive is brown, what color will these be? So again, this is our genotype. So then our phenotype will be gray, because they all have a dominant allele. So the dominant allele will mask the recessive allele, so they will all be gray. So what is the probability of having a gray baby? So we know that these are the possible genotypes, so now what's the probability of this result, of this cross between these 2 parents? So they will have 100% chance of having a gray baby, because they all have dominant alleles in their genotype. So all the babies will be gray in this case. So can these parents have a brown baby? What do you think? If these parents here, so we have the dad here with 2 dominant alleles and then the mom with 2 recessive alleles, can they have a brown baby? The answer is no. They cannot have a brown baby. Why can't they have a brown baby? They can't have a brown baby because there's no chance of having a homozygous recessive genotype, because the dad has 2 dominant genotypes, so he can't give a recessive genotype.